Hi everyone, thank you for attending this session. Thank you for coming to the DynamicsCon conference. My name is Sania Kolonji and I'm software architect at Docentric. Here at Docentric, we specialize in reporting and document automation components and add-ons for Microsoft technologies. In this session, I will present the Docentric reporting solution to you. Its main characteristics is that it uses Microsoft Word as a report designer, but there are many more benefits to it, and I hope that you will see the most important ones during this session. As the name of this session promises, I will first describe what hurts us the most in D365 reporting, and will then demonstrate how Docentric cures these pains. Before I continue, there is something very important I want to announce. We will be giving away two gifts. One Xbox One X and one Commodore D64 Mini. What you need to do is watch and listen this session carefully. At one moment, we will tell you to check the conference chat, where you will find a link to the registration page. Then, second, follow the link, where you will be able to leave your contact information and answer a short quiz. Don't be afraid, there will be 3 simple questions, and if you're carefully following our session, there will be a no-brainer. And finally, third thing, at the very end of this session, we will draw 2 lucky winners of the mentioned prizes, one for Xbox One X and one for Commodore the C64 Mini. We will announce the winners' names here, and we'll contact them after the session to arrange for the gift's delivery. So let's take a peek at our agenda and check what is it that I prepared for you today. I hope that you are as curious as these children on the image. As this session title announces, as I already said, we will start by describing what hurts us the most in D365 reporting. Honestly speaking, every step in the report design, generation, and distribution is troublesome and can drive you crazy. So we will list the most critical ones, thus setting the stage for the rest of the presentation, where I will demonstrate how the Docentric reporting solution comes to the rescue. Until about a year ago, we had only SSRS. Then electronic reporting and configurable business documents came into the picture as a promise to resolve all problems with SSRS, but it isn't exactly so. So we will go into more details about it and describe how Docentric fits into this architecture and how it really resolves the problems with both SSRS and electronic reporting. When this theoretical part is done, we will move on to live demos. When designing the Docentric templates, a common approach is to separate the two concerns, design and data, from each other. And this yields to a 2-step process. In first phase, we deal only with the design, and honestly speaking, for that, you need only what standard Microsoft Word has to offer. And then, in the second phase, you start with that design. Think of it as a mock-up, as something that you would like to get as a result of your printing, and then you use really Docentric tool, which is add-on for Microsoft Word, to insert the dynamic content into your layout. Okay, we will demonstrate both of these steps, and as most of you are probably still not completely fluent in electronic reporting, for this demo we will use SSRS based report. Once we have our dynamic content added to the design, it's time for testing and fine-tuning. This is where the Docentric Designer really shines. It has phenomenal preview features, and it boosts your productivity tenfold at least. We will see this on example of few frequent scenarios. Then, just not to leave electronic reporting out of the image, we will also demonstrate the experience with working with the electronic reporting based report data source. What is basically important is that the experience is almost the same, but the problems that electronic reporting introduced are overcome. We will see that in practice. Then, as I have already mentioned, Docentric isn't only about the report designer. We listen carefully to our clients and partners, to their challenges around the document generation and distribution and archiving. And with every new release of our D365FO component, and releases come approximately every 3 months. So with every new release, we are bringing more and more improvements in this area. and one where FO really has a poor experience and is, on the other hand, very important and becomes more and more important is emailing. So we will demonstrate some of Docentric emailing related improvements, and we will do it on an example of configuring the sales invoice print management for the emailing. As it is common, we will make a review of the presented material, and we'll announce the next steps for those among you who would like to learn more about Docentric or would even like to give it a test run. I invite you to send me questions or opinions in your session chat window during the presentation so that we can discuss them during a Q&A session. And we left the most exciting moment for the very end. We will turn on a Wheel of Fortune to draw the winners of our two great gifts, Xbox One X and the C64 Mini. With a little luck, you will see your name, and I hope you will be happy that you attended DynamicsCon and our session. So once again, I remind you to watch and listen carefully, because from time to time, I will show some hints on the screen. They will help you to answer our quiz correctly, because only the correct answers will be candidates for the prizes. When you see this wheel picture on the screen, there will be a hint afterwards. For example, something like this. So please check now the session chat. We have placed here a link for registering for our prizes. You can follow that link anytime from now on. There will be two pages, first where we ask you to leave your contact information, and the second with a 3-question quiz. I suggest that you wait until you hear the information you need to correctly answer the quiz questions, and don't be afraid, your session won't time out. You have about next 45 minutes until we close the registration, and I will warn you a few minutes in advance. Until the electronic reporting business documents appearance, SSRS was the only way of customizing the reports. Developers in the audience, and probably the functional consultants as well, are aware of many SSRS problems. First of all, it is a generic Microsoft reporting solution, not specifically tailored for D365. It runs on external server, thus resulting sometimes in certain performance issues. Any layout modifications require building and deploying the new version, and it is impossible to get the modification quickly on the production environment. This is maybe the biggest pain. It is natural that the reports are owned by the end users, but with SSRS, end users can't take the report design in their hands because it's done through the SSRS designer, which is a developer tool in Visual Studio. So instead of it, end users have to only specify their requirements, typically to the functional consultants, who further communicate that with the developers. And even if we're talking about the minor modification, like modifying the title size, this chain of commands must be followed. So even the minor modifications often require several cycles until somebody in that chain gives up. Usually it's the users. So very often we hear that with SSRS, they simply settle for a good enough result, and more often than not, they don't reach the perfect result. And on the opposite side from the end users are the developers. And I haven't met a developer who isn't frustrated by the SSRS designer and the whole process, from receiving the requirement until the end of the process, when the users are happy or at least satisfied. Developers often get a printout of the current report, where functional consultant just doodles the requirement, insert a new column here, add extra space there, shift the title there, try with a little lighter color, and things like that. I've also been there years ago before joining Docentric, so trust me, I was frustrated, and if you are frustrated as well, I feel your pain. And yes, usually there isn't an explanation how to get some extra space for that new column, or how much is a little movement of the title, and so on. And that was maybe the core of the problem. But with the time, what we started to learn from our clients and partners is that when everything about the SSRS design is said and done, there comes a new frustration. Standard FO print destinations are extremely limited. When you, for example, think of an email print destination, you know that it has only 2 CC and BCC field. There's no even email body, and we often heard from our clients that such emails end up in their spam folder. we were measuring, and it has a spam score like 80% or 8 out of 10, something like that. So there's obviously a place for improvement. Let's continue with the pains. With the introduction of electronic reporting, we saw some great improvements which empowered functional consultants and extremely advanced end users to customize the report from the beginning, from the report data source to the end, to the report format. But electronic reporting business documents come with many deficiencies. Configurable business documents are complex. They come with the little and poor documentation, and the learning curve is very, very slow. It took us, our whole team, maybe half a year to not to become experts, but to become above average users. And it was a lot of us trying to figure out what electronic reporting is about, and with the objective to integrate Docentric with electronic reporting models and model mappings configurations. We succeeded in it, and that's why I will be later able to demonstrate that. But trust me, it took a lot of clever people, a lot of time to come to some results. User experiences, well, you get the print management-like forms as your main UI for designing the data models and bindings. Buttons are on unexpected places. In short, user interface and actions are non-intuitive. It simply takes a lot of time and practice to achieve the simplest things. It has been about a year since electronic reporting business documents are published, and we already heard from several different partners that they gave them a try, but decided that they will stick to the SSRS data sources. And it is also my honest opinion as a developer that a developer will reach the same result much faster by customizing a data provider classes than by customizing the electronic reporting model and model mapping. On the other hand, functional consultants will have to be brave, patient, and invest a lot of time to get some results. But let's now move on to the objective problems with this solution. Preview, original, and copy in electronic reporting executes equally as print through print management. And therefore, it is not possible to print preview. You always get what is configured in electronic reporting destination, and there is no way to perform a quick check on a screen for non-batch situations, then download or print directly from the preview. As you know, there are about 1,000 reports in FO, but only about 50 of them are print management reports. So configurable business documents offer you the same user experience only for the print management reports, meaning you click on exactly the same menu items as you are used to with SSRS reports. But for all the remaining 900 something reports, you need to go into the electronic reporting configuration and start them. There you will need to provide a query to identify the document or the document ranges you want to print. So really poor user experience from that point of view. Then PDF output format is supported via Microsoft Office 365 cloud service instead of being generated from within D365. Okay, printing to network printers is sold through Document Routing Agent and Adobe Acrobat. Consequentially, mass printing isn't supported. Printing to local printers is possible if the generated report is first open in Excel or Word application. Print destinations have been just slightly improved in comparison with SSRS, but still missing so many important features. And when we look further, features such as emailing or archiving are offering just the bare minimum. After this introduction, what hurts in electronic reporting and SSRS reports? Let's see how does Docentric cure these problems. So let's now see how will Docentric handle the problems with SSRS. This represents the really high-level architecture of SSRS execution pipeline. Notice that this is not everything that's being executed in the context of D365. Some of it, like output document generation, is done externally on external SSRS server, which I mentioned already earlier. And now let's see. Let's repeat what did we say about the pains. And on this slide, I will just talk about these two red marked problems, that there is no designer for end users and that document distribution features are missing. So designer for end users, is problem because design is done through the coding by the developer in SSRS template designer, and document distribution features. This is what I have to say about them. They are, I don't know, the same print destinations that were developed for AX 2012 or maybe even 2009, I can't remember. And D365 has exactly everything the same, no improvement was added there. So Docentric decided first to tackle this problem with SSRS templates being designed by the developers, and that's why we took extra care to provide a solution that will be very user-friendly, very convenient, very easy to be learned, because we wanted end users and maybe non-developers in your companies to be able to work with it. Yes, it's targeting this problem here, and it is designed, it is implemented as an add-on for Microsoft Word. So the Docentric Designer is a solution that runs as add-on on Microsoft Word, which gives you a new tab on the Microsoft ribbon. And as a result of it, you will create Docentric designs as Microsoft Word documents that you can store on these listed locations, SharePoint, Azure, or D365. And you can really left your imagination to create whatever you want. You can have these nice colorful documents like here, or you can have just the copies of SSRS. You can use our ready-made designs, which are exact copies of SSRS. We call them Docentric SSRS replicas. So obviously we need something that will now deal with these designs and will be able to take over the control from D365, from SSRS, so not from D365, but from SSRS, and to combine the report data source that comes out of SSRS with these designs. And this is this middle lane that appeared on the screen. So what happens in the setup, you register the reports that you want to run through Docentric. So if at the moment of executing some SSRS, Docentric doesn't find the setup that it is registered for Docentric, we will simply let SSRS continue to the end as it's used to. But if we find the corresponding setup, then we will take the correct template from one of these storage types based on the configuration. We will combine it with the SSRS report data source and we'll generate the document. That's what our document generation is doing. And also in the pipeline, we are improving the output management. So the result goes to Docentric print destinations. It can go also to SSRS print destinations, but as you will later see, we did so much in improving them, then it makes much more sense to use them. And it is very important to notice that this middle lane is executed in the context of D365, so it doesn't require any external server. I was talking how our print destinations want to solve the problem of this dinosaur, so that approximately completes the explanation of this slide. And just let's repeat. So the Docentric solution consists of two components. One of them is our add-in for Microsoft Word, and in it you design the templates. And the second component is add-on for D365. It consists of 3 models that you install within D365. As I have just said, they execute in the context of D365, then they don't require external server, so everything is lightweight, much simpler for the maintenance, and performance is much, much, much better. So if we check again the list of SSRS panes, so as opposed to SSRS, which is a generic solution, our Docentric solution is specialized and targeted to D365FO, designed and developed by a long time D365 architects and developers who know how to make the things in an optimal way, who know how the users think and reason, and know to make really intuitive and user-friendly setup and configuration in D365. Then As I already said, we don't need some external servers. Documents are generated in the context of D365. There's no need for the deployment because, as you see on the top of the slide, our templates are stored through the configuration in different locations, and you can change them even in also on the production immediately as soon as you need it. The core problem, no designer for end users, is solved by giving end users a tool everybody knows to use, Microsoft Word. So we don't need to teach you how to use Microsoft Word. We only need to show you how to use our tools within Microsoft Word to bring the dynamic content to your design. As a result, report customizations are not costly any longer. There are no circles between the end users, functional consultants, and developers. Most of the job is done by end users, design and layout for sure. Eventually, they might need some help with the data from functional consultants, but even with that, after the time, they learn about it, they learn their data, they or you as end users become owner of your reports. Developers are almost out of the game. Maybe there will be situations, okay, obviously, because this solution, as we see it, it still requires developers for this first part, and that is a report data source. So when you need a new data source, modification in the report data source, some custom fields, developers are needed. But other than that, so as it goes for the layout, developers are completely out of the picture, and that is a good thing both for clients, end users, and for the developers. Missing document distribution features. We take this task very seriously based on what we learn from our partners and clients. With every new release, we make sure to bring more and more new cool features in this area. So let's talk about it. In first phase, how did electronic reporting solve the pains of SSRS? They say, if we're talking about the print management reports, they are started in the same way as SSRS, in the same menu items. And then in the print management setup, it's specified if the form used will be, or format used will be SSRS or CBD. So if it is SSRS, the execution further goes in a standard way. But if it is CBD, then a completely new path is executed. And there we have first the electronic reporting model and model mapping, then we have electronic reporting format and their output document generation. And also if it goes for non-print management reports, then they're started somehow directly from electronic reporting configuration. With model and model mapping, Microsoft is targeting the problem of a developer needed for the report data source customization, and good job was done there. It's very complex. It has to be complex because the material, the topic is complicated. So you cannot do it in a simple way, but you can really do miracles with it. So if you want to take the non-development path, it pays off to learn this part. But here is where the problem comes. Format design still is done in a non-optimal way, not by using a specialized template designer, but by using Excel or Word or PDF, but in their base form, so without any add-ons like Docentric Designer is. So the experience is very, very difficult. And we don't see that after a year, we don't see that it was accepted, and we think that it's not going to be accepted, but that is something what Docentric is solving. And with electronic reporting destinations, Microsoft wanted to answer the challenge with that dinosaur for the SSRS print destinations. They did achieve some small improvements, but really still a lot is missing there. Those pains that we listed for electronic reporting reports, this is how Docentric is solving. Or if we start from the previous image, that's the image how we are solving SSRS problem. And here we are just inserting one tiny little element, not so tiny, it was a lot of development for us, but basically everything else happens as it should happen, as it's happening in SSRS. So doesn't matter if it is print management or non-print management report, it started in the same way, user experience is the same, all those things like print, preview, print through print management, things like that, they work exactly as you are used to. But if in the Docentric setup you configure that you want to run that report through based on the electronic reporting data source, then you have to specify based on which model and model mapping, and Docentric will go pick up that model and model mapping, execute the model mapping, basically, and that will result in a report data source based on the electronic reporting, which we will then further, everything goes the same as with SSRS, so we combine that report data source with the templates, and again we have our Docentric improved print destination, so you benefit from all of this. So let's quickly go through these. You don't need to deal with complexity in poor documentation. Okay, models and model mappings are complex, but still much, even much worse part is forms, which we avoided with this configuration. User friend, in this case, user experience is great because you are dealing, again, the same as with SSRS, you are dealing with our Word add-on. Format design is very simple, and we will see it immediately after, I think, this slide or the next one. And as I said, all the standard SSRS features are working normally. Print, preview, print management reports and non-print management reports started in the same way. All these printing is PDF, direct printing works exactly as in SSRS. And documents are distributed through Docentric improved print destinations. So that was about how, in theory, we cure the problems with SSRS and electronic reporting. So now let's see that in practice. So it's time for our demo where we want to generate the sales invoice from scratch with Docentric. And as I already said, we will do it in two phases. In first phase, we will deal only with the design. So for that, we don't need Docentric. We only need Microsoft Word. And for that, I will run one really short accelerated video clip, which will show you a possible process. And then in the second phase, we will take that mockup and start using Docentric tools to transform it into a fully functional Docentric template. You would probably take some header and a footer, or let me stop this for a moment, just that I show you. Notice this tab here, Docentric AX. So that is that add-on that you install the first out of our two components. But for this short clip, I'm not going to use it. I will use only what standard Word has to offer. And as you saw, I added some header and footer, copied them from some other document. That's the same what you would also do. You would add some title, you would decide about the formatting, colors, positions, and everything. This is something where usually end users and functional consultants work together so that they decide what kind of information they want to see here in the header and obviously later in the lines. But most of this can be done later, end users will then continue playing with this in order to make this beautiful, add some icons maybe or colors and everything. Here on the table for the lines, you would decide what kind of formatting again you want to have. Previously, end users were sitting together with functional consultants and specifying what kind of information you want to see in lines. And here you would enter, we want item description, quantity, price. You would enter some mock-up values. Okay, I'm copy pasting them, but this is the place where you would figure out what is your largest possible amount, for example, and you would type the largest possible amount so that you make this column for the amount the most narrow possible, because we all know that this is typically the most problematic part of reports, where to find and to squeeze some extra information. Maybe initially you have identified, I don't know, 10 different columns you want to see in these lines. Now this is just I will just stop it because there's nothing special further, just to comment on this table for the lines. As I was saying, you would maybe put the longest possible item description or something that is approximately what you expect to get as the longest description, just to see how it's all going to fit to the screen. Maybe initially you identified much more columns, 10 columns, one for item description, one for item ID, one for quantity, one for unit of measure, but then you figure out that you are missing space for them. Then you need to somehow figure out how to get it all together. Maybe you put these two in the same column, then maybe something is missing. Let's try to put this bold. And for all of that, when I say you, I mean if you're end users, so the final users of these of D365 and not Microsoft implementation partner, then you will be playing with this alone, and you don't need a functional consultant or, God forbid, developer for this. And also notice this is a Word document, so you can send it to your colleagues for a review. Everyone can put a comment here, or everyone can try for himself what's it going to look to be when this title is on the left or on the right or in the middle or blue or black or yellow. And when all the stakeholders are happy with the design, and when they say, okay, we sign off this mockup, now is the time for the second phase, where you start using Docentric in order to bring the dynamic content to this image. What you would do, you obviously don't need these mockup values, but instead of them, you want to bring the values coming from your report data source. You won't need 3 or 4 or 10, or I don't know how many table rows. You would need just one of them, but you would need to say, this has to be repeated with every sales invoice line. So let's see how that process goes. I'm not going to do it completely. We don't have time, but I will do it with a few fields so that you get the idea of the user experience. Here we have our Docentric toolbar, and everything is disabled because obviously we need to bring some piece of information from D365. We do it in a very simple way, but that is not a topic for this presentation. So the only thing I can do here is to say use as template, but it's not as simple as that. I need to point to some valid information. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it on my computer. I need to point to some valid information that holds everything I need to work completely offline in my designer. And that information is stored in one file that we call DDSP, stands short for, as you can see, Docentric Data Source Package, but is actually one XML file that contains the information about the report data source, information about some sample data that will come handy for the testing, and also labels and label translations everywhere except in the US. That is a big deal to work with multilingual reports. So we want to have labels, we want to have label translations so that we don't need to go back and forth between D365 and the designer, but whoever is working in the designer can work completely offline and has all he needs here. So I will point to this one. So depending if I was executing ER-based or SSRS-based report, I got different this package. I will now import this one. And those among you who are familiar with SSRS report data source and schema, you will recognize that this one is different. It is because we decided to, in our report-specific execution, to reshape the data so that we make it easier for the non-technical people, because we can, it's perfectly fine through the configuration. You can leave also the data source exactly as it comes from SSRS, but in that case, non-technical people who are typically working with this design will have a tough job of constantly filtering lines. You see what we did. We split the lines into the different transaction lines, back order markup, and so on, so that you can focus only on just certain type of the lines. If we didn't do that, then in every table which is dealing with the different types of the lines, you would need to also implement some kind of filtering, the same thing that was done in SSRS, and for that they would need to come to the developer. We wanted to avoid that. We wanted to make them as independent, non-technical people and users preferably, as independent from the development as possible. So here what you would do, you would say, for example, here, I don't know, invoice number. Instead of it, these are our tools, our arsenal of tools that we use to bring the dynamic content to the design. So I would say, for example, I want through this field tagging element, similar as in SSRS, and we put that information to this extended header, and here is my invoice ID, for example. And invoice date, let's see, I think it should be somewhere in the header, and invoice date, here it is. So with the SSRS, you would need to go now and build and deploy your SSRS and then find some invoice and print it in order to see the results. But in Docentric, we have two great preview functionalities, this one and this live preview. This one will generate really the file for you, but probably it's going to some other screen. It went to the correct screen. As you can see, this is a PDF, this is document which you can save, send to a colleague for a review. And as you can see, now these two, instead of these two fields, I got some values here. So this is why this PDF previewer is great. You can save it as a file, and also even more important, it's using exactly the same renderer as the one that we implemented in D365. So for that reason, it gives you pixel perfect result, exactly the same result as the one that you can expect in the application. But other than that, this live preview is really great. So let me see if I followed the instructions on where to put my content. It can go here to the top because there's nothing interesting there. And it can also go to the bottom because there's also nothing interesting here. Only this left I was told to leave empty. So let's see this live preview. It's constantly rendering our design based on the sample data. So if I go here and check, this is the exact data. Let's wait a second. This is exact data that existed on that sales invoice which I used for generating this DDSP file that I imported and got to the data schema, sample data, and also labels, as you remember, probably. So as we can see here now, these two are rendered here. Let me make it like this. They're rendered here. So for example, for the date, obviously, we don't want, this is a presented in the default format, but I will add here like short date format, and I will get immediately the result. And also, if I use the labels, let's use some label, because I hope there are other people, not just from US, who are looking at this, who are watching this presentation. Instead of the fixed caption, we would use the label, which is related to this field here. There are many other possibilities, but right now that's what I'm going to use. So here now I got the translation of this label in which language? In the selected preview language. So I can say, show it to me in German, and I will see the German translation. And not just that, I will, wherever the format is applied, that is typically for the dates and for the numbers, I would also get the presented date and number in the culture of the selected language. Okay, let's see this. We don't need this, all these table rows. We need just one table row, and we need it repeated. So for that, we will use the list tagging element. We need it repeated with every transaction line. So it's going to be this one. And now I got it repeated as many times as I have lines in my sample data, and it is 5 times, trust me. Okay, so now you would want to say, okay, instead of this, we want that description from the line. Again, we will use the field tagging element, and from the context of the current line, we will bind it to the name. Notice that the formatting is preserved, so you don't need to go and format your formatting, meaning word formatting. So fonts, colors, and everything, we don't need to do it again. And here I got now really the values coming from my sample data. We can prove that by going here into the lines and scrolling to the right until I reach this field name. So mid-range speaker 2, account, acoustic foam panel, and so on and so on. Maybe you would notice that you didn't use the correct this DDSP file which you imported, that maybe your actual data might be much longer. So no problem, go directly here and say made longer so that it goes into the second line. Okay. Here we immediately see it, and then we notice it's maybe not so nice. Maybe a little bit of paragraph spacing would be useful. Maybe give us before some, I don't know, 2 points. Okay, and we immediately see the result. If we figure out that this column can be more narrow, do it here and see the result here. So all those things which are such a horrible pain in with the SSRS, it's simply almost fun to do it in this way. And as a result, I'm not going to finish this, but I will open another document. This is the report where all these dynamic content is transformed. You see how many previous, this was the original file, and here are all our dynamic content that was brought from here to the design. It's listed here. So this is now the fully functional design or template, and this is what it will give as a result. Now this document which I opened has another sample data, but you get the point. And if I take this and apply it in D365, it will give us the correct results. But I want to show you also one thing. This is our replica, because as you can see here, this is one simplified example where I wanted to play with, in this previous example, I wanted to play with the nice layout and colors, while this here is what we call the Docentric SSRS replica. So we went through SSRS and made reverse engineered SSRS layout and logic, you know, all those conditional showing or hiding, you see like this here, if there is finish localization, or this if there is line header different from empty string, and so on and so on. So this here, for example, would generate this kind of a document. And when you install Docentric and Docentric replicas, this is what you get from the day 0. So really cool thing. Okay. I will close all these things and this here, and let's check our agenda, how to work with the Docentric designer. And we saw that in the first phase, we were just using the plain Microsoft Word, while in the second phase, we were using Docentric add-in for Microsoft Word, which is a tool, our tool for dealing with templates for SSRS. After this was done, actually, I already did this, some testing and fine-tuning of the report. I already shown you this part of previewing, but a few more things that I really love is you noticed how previously I modified this sample data. One thing that I always hated with SSRS, when you need to test how is this table going to behave when it goes to the second page. You needed to go into SSRS, find, or even worse, create an invoice with 20 lines. Here you simply go into the sample data here, select all these lines up to here, and copy and paste them several times in this sample data editor. And I hope I will have enough of them so that they go to the second page. Then typically what you notice is that this initial title doesn't appear here as a title. Sorry, this initial first row doesn't appear as a title row on the next page. If you know how to do it in Word, that's your answer. And if you don't know how to do it in Word, if you Google it, I guarantee that the first link will give you the correct answer. So that is another beauty of using Microsoft Word as a basis for your designer. I want to go and right click and say, because it's something on a table and it's something on the row, I want to say repeat this header row at the top of each page, and then it will appear here. Many things like conditionally showing or hiding content, labels in different, previewing in different languages. Those things we can smoothly and quickly test here and immediately get the results. I like always to use a little bit of coloring as well to really identify what from my design results in which data on the left side. But let's move on. We have seen testing and fine-tuning, and there's much more, but that is something that can be done on a separate demo, personal demo. So if things that you see now are interesting to you, please contact us and we will arrange a demo for you. For electronic reporting based reports, the same thing is true. I would again start from that mockup, but in this case, I would insert here or import the data source that was created by running electronic reporting based report. And that will generate this kind of DDSP, which will know about the data schema for electronic reporting, which you will immediately recognize. If you have been playing at least a little bit with electronic reporting, then you might recognize this structure like report data, sales invoice on the top, and then separate structures for customer, invoice base, invoice lines, things like that. So something that you would want to add to the header would be here. But other than that, the experience is completely the same. I will have problem now to identify which of these is invoice ID. In probably this one here. So I would again use this field tagging element and bind it to this and base and ID. And if I preview, I should have some value there that should be the same as in the electronic reporting. You see in this SSRS based, because I've used the same report for generating both of these DDSP files. But trust me, everything else is completely the same. Experience in designing is completely the same. The next demo I want to show you is experience with emailing this same sales invoice. For that, I will need to go into my development environment. Now for the emailing, for demonstrating how sending emails through the Docentric goes, I will show you on my development environment. Here is the workspace for the Docentric, and here let me show you quickly those. Here we see a list of all the reports that are registered to run through the Docentric, and when you install our replicas, so our D365 component plus the fourth model, complementary, which we call Docentric SSRS replicas, you will get a list of these reports here. And if we go into the sales invoice report, here at the bottom is a list of the templates that I plan to use in different situations for this report. And this sales invoice report is our replica for SSRS. And this CBD sales invoice is our replica. I can download it and show it quickly. It's the same thing, or actually no, this is something different. This is, again, we made replicas also of the Microsoft CBD formats. Those among you who have been playing with them recognize these blue rows in the table. So if I preview this, this is what you would get with Docentric CBD replica. Okay, and now I want to use our replica for SSRS, as you can see. So I will make it as a default template. So this is the simplest setup so that it is used when I'm printing. Let's check print destinations. And in particular, I want to talk about email print destination for customer invoice. You know that with standard for email, you get only two CC subject and nothing more. And let's see with Docentric. I will make this a little smaller. I think it's still okay. No, I'll make it like this. So in addition to 2 and CC, and what was it with standard subject? Subject is here somewhere. We have many, many other possibilities, like how is that attachment going, that report, how is it going to be named, the document when it is attached to the outgoing email. We can specify also BCC, we can specify from, very important thing, so that your mails don't go from Mary and John from your company, but that they go from accounting at your company or purchasing at your company. We have a full HTML body editor where we can use placeholders. They are things that are calculated in runtime and replaced by the corresponding value. We have also so-called user-defined placeholders. All of them are Docentric specifics. We have standard labels, like system labels. We have so-called user-defined labels, again, Docentric specifics. We can use the logos. This is HTML code, and somewhere here I'm referencing a logo from our webpage, but we can also have some embedded images, the whole what you see is what you get editor, and so on. And also we have the possibility to, where are you? We have a possibility to specify additional attachments like terms and conditions or some specification on the outgoing or related to, I don't know, invoice or customer or whatever. So I will use this option here, only if I find it. Open email before sending, so that I don't need really to send email, but I will just preview and see how everything that is done here is resolved. And by the way, I already mentioned the placeholders. As you can see, we can use them in every Docentric print destination, in every string field. We have a lot of these placeholders, like standard placeholders, something that doesn't depend on the report, like worker-related information, user-related information, current timestamp, and so on. But we also have report-specific placeholders like invoice, ID, date, account, and so on, and also some user-defined placeholders. So with this setup, let's see what's going to happen when I print one sales invoice through print management. So I will find something like this. Okay, so based on this setup, let's try and print the report through print management so that the setting is used. And based on that flag download email, it's not going to be sent, but it will be downloaded from the server. Ignore this. This is the way how we are getting those famous DDSP files by saying generate DDSP when report runs. It's based on one flag, so it's not going to be there all the time. But this is important that application has downloaded the email and is warning me. Okay, I know what it is, so I will open it. And here you can see, based on, let's check quickly our setup. So based on this setup, this email token was primary business contact on that particular account. Obviously, I configured it to use my business email. This was based on this token. Then subject, all these placeholders were resolved. So subject of these mails is invoice, because this was user-defined placeholder to say invoice or credit note based on the amount, if it is positive or negative. Then invoice ID was resolved as this one. This was due date, well, Contoso data, so very old data. Based on this flag, I got this email. Then further, let's see, attachment. So this attachment name, invoice ID with invoice name, invoice account, and so on and so on. It's all we had here, and I can open it so that we make sure that it is really our report. Next thing, BCC came here. Email body, you remember what we had there. So these were the placeholders resolved, this and everything here that is in color came from system labels, user-defined labels by Docentric, user-defined placeholders like by Docentric, and actually the whole email body by Docentric. But also, final thing, we have also these additional attachment rules where I said, give me the terms and conditions from my legal entity. So based on that, And not just that, but give it such a name, give it the name here, you see, use the original description from the document management framework, but add this extension from suffix from legal entity. So I got it here. So there are many other improvements related to emailing. I invite you to check also our webpage where you can read much more about it, or as I already said, to get in contact with us, write to us at sales@docentric.com or support@docentric.com, and we will be happy to get in touch with you and give you the personalized demo or help you to start testing our solution, or hopefully also using it. That was it. We saw our demo for the sales invoice emailing, and we saw how our placeholders and where they can be used. As a conclusion, I hope that I managed to demonstrate and that you really believe me when I say that our solution frees you from the most painful challenges in D365 reporting. End users will become the owners of report designs, which is the only natural thing. Report designs, which are common, about 40 of them are already prepared by Docentric in this model that we call Docentric SSRS replicas, and we also provide the replicas for CBDs, and end of year we will have a public release of our integration with electronic reporting, which is actually completely functional for a long, it has been functional for a long time, but it's going through extensive testing in our company. Very important thing that I mentioned a few times already, we are very carefully listening to our clients and partners, and constantly trying to solve their problems through some clever configuration. So every new release of ours is bringing more and more improvements. As I said, for more info, we will be happy to get in touch if you get in touch with us. Other than that, I just want to say thank you really for joining me at this session.